Still on road?
Your Honor, I would like this time to submit evidence concerning Mr. Bissell's testimony, Mr. Dulce's testimony. Actually, I think everyone can attest his testimony. No, I'll let you read these.
This is everything that you presented thus far.
No, this is some of it.
Yeah, could you keep that for a little while? Let's mark it.
Also, we're going to reintroduce their evidence for them.
Wait, can we get a copy?
No. I'd also like to point out respectfully to the judge at this time, in the introduction of physical evidence, after giving physical evidence, the opposing counsel is allowed to make its objections at that time, state their objection at the time to that physical evidence. I think that clears up a little trouble for yesterday. It's right here in the rule.
Justin, are we going to be able to see any of that evidence? Yeah, the
Right here. No rules.
No, they haven't still marked it.
Yeah, we're going to mark it and ready if we have copies.
Who it involves, right?
You got some money?
Just mark one copy.
All right, proceed with the questions.
Mr. Dulles, yesterday he stated that President Kennedy refused to allow CIA or military involvement in Beijing or the use of foreign bases. Is that correct?
Objection. He's already answered the question. It's already on record.
It's yesterday. I just want to make sure that he realizes.
It's already on record. It doesn't matter whether it was a minute ago or yesterday. It's already on record.
No military personnel from the United States were involved in the invasion.
And when your question as to your military experience, you define CIA operations as military experience, correct? And CIA personnel as military personnel.
No, CIA personnel are not military personnel.
Objection. It's already on record. He already stated that CIA is sometimes involved in military procedures. Also, I'd like to cite his Korean War experience at this time.
He did not bring that up.
It doesn't matter whether he did not bring it up at the time. He admits that that's a military experience in itself.
Let me note that find that information on the DOD Army
Mr. Dulles, in fact, said that he has some previous military experience.
Drop that file. Did you want me to go back and check the record? You want the file?
I can't see your notes.
Realize the record.
I'm saying if you wanted to go back and see, it would be hard.
We're not coaching the witness time. I would object to that reference. Ask that it be stricken.
Is it true or not that as of November 18, 1960, President Kennedy, you were involved in informing President Kennedy of the Guatemalan bases, the use of invasion? Guatemalan training bases.
Oh, yes.
In fact, military bases used on foreign soil
Or military bases?
used to train Cuban troops for Cuban invasion.
Objection. He hasn't specified what military installation. Are you speaking of the Cuban Revolutionary Council military installation, or are you speaking of our? You just said military. You weren't being. I object because you weren't being specific enough. He cannot answer a question.
Be specific.
Training grounds.
Pick up, yeah, please.
Training grounds used for the Cuban Revolution.
It was the CIA's intention to use the Panama Jungle Warfare Training Center, which was denied by the President and the State Department. They insisted
So where were the
non-United States military bases. In fact, several of your witnesses testified to the fact that private land was used.
Yesterday, he testified that Kennedy refused to involve foreign bases as well.
No, I said United States bases. On foreign soil. On foreign soil.
I object. It is on the record. You're browbeating the witness. It's on the record that he said U.S. bases on foreign soil.
Foreign bases.
Then I was mistaken. I didn't say that.
You're no red.
Fine, okay.
Obviously, you're playing semantics.
You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous.
And you can see that on November 18, 1996, Kennedy was informed that the Guatemalan bases.
Yes.
Okay. And in the 4-point plan submitted to Eisenhower and held over, Part 4 describes the development of paramilitary force. Now, was that paramilitary force definitely, was it, the purpose of it was an invasion of Cuba? Was it
Purpose, the
purpose,
original.
the purpose of the training of the Cubans in Guatemala, of the paramilitary force, quote unquote, was the invasion of Cuba? That was stated in the 4-point plan.
I don't know if it was stated in the 4-point plan, but that was the purpose.
In fact, in the 4-point plan, guerrilla warfare was stated.
Objection. He just said paramilitary group. A paramilitary group primary purpose is to invade.
There's a distinction between guerrilla warfare, landing for guerrilla warfare, and invasion.
Both ways, the forces are actually.
I'm trying to establish that the invasion component of the plan.
You need to objection. You need to define your parameters when you talk about invasion. You're actually grabbing the witness and trying to get him to perjure yourself when you're not defining.
No, I just established that the invasion was established under Kennedy, not Eisenhower. Eisenhower specifically said guerrilla warfare. Kennedy's plan was geared towards invasion.
I believe Eisenhower's testimony speaks for itself. He said he just gave it to the CIA. Now, how are you trying to prove that it's under Kennedy? You haven't asked to think about Kennedy. No one asked you to be more specific.
What's your objection?
I object on the grounds he's trying to entrap my witness by not giving solid enough parameters. My witness is obviously
A military expert.
I can understand that.
yeah, because of his Korean War experience and the CIA experience. No, he's talking about it.
I brought up the word, the
You're saying
letter, the
invasion.
letter of the 4-point plan.
Alright, it's been
I'll just choose my question. Was the invasion component of the Cuban force brought up, authorized under Kennedy or Eisenhower?
The training.
Oh, the invasion. Just
The invasion?
He just stated that the training was for the invasion.
Down for a minute.
I'd
like at this time to show the prosecution evidence so that you don't keep on browbeating the witness. On November 4th, 1964, days after the American president election, the CIA advisors at base Trax, how you pronounce it, in Guatemala received word from their superiors in Washington that guerrilla operation had been scrapped in favor of an invasion.
You said 1960.
That's 1960. That's under Eisenhower.
Go get it photocopied.
You don't have to ask me questions.
It is 1960.
You don't have to ask me anymore.
Go get it photocopied.
I don't know if the lady's going to let me. She's not.
Wait, President Eisenhower did not
Can you
authorize.
use that money again?
Yes, he did.
No.
1960. All right, no,
It's not involved in working out the policy decisions.
It doesn't matter. It's under his administration that this was done.
Kennedy authorized foul invasion.
It doesn't matter. The invasion plan. I'm not going to publicly debate this. I'm just going to send it as evidence and just keep it until I get the photocopy. 1960s Eisenhower administration. That's when the plan was changed.
Mr. Dulles, did you realize that your department was working against the Department of Justice?
No, I didn't realize that.
When, in fact, it was.
Objection. Could the court please direct opposing counsel to be a little more specific in their in the nature of going against the Justice Department?
Okay, let me see. CIA's actions were in violation of the Neutrality Act, under which Orlando Masfera, one of the Batista exiles who was in fact originally part of the Cuban invasion force, was tried. U.S. Code Title 18, Section 960. Anyone who knowingly begins or provides or prepares a means for a military expedition against the country with which the United States is at peace. CIA was in fact working against the Justice Department as well as in violation.
I object. You're saying we were at peace. We were at peace with Cuba. I mean, we had already broken off diplomatic relationships. If you consider that peace with Cuba, then, I mean, I don't know what your parameters are now.
No war was declared. United States of war.
If you break off diplomatic relations, that is not exactly peaceful relations. Would you agree? It didn't say state of war. It said a state of peace.
This man was tried there. Found guilty. So the CIA.
That's after the trial. You're bringing up evidence totally irrelevant.
Could also be booked on the same charges.
He's bringing up evidence totally after the fact.
After this man
We already have a precedent in a ruling yesterday.
I have evidence.
No, it's not.
I know, but he's the person. It doesn't matter.
This is right after the white paper, before the invasion.
But what about diplomatic relations? having been canceled under Eisenhower. That is not a state of peace.
It's not a state of war. This man was tried and found guilty at that time.
Once diplomatic relations are severed, that's the first step towards hostility.
This man was
When Arthur Schlesinger comes up, we'll just ask him that.
He was supposed to, he's like going on a different line.
Oh, can we see the text of that?
Yes.
See?
No. Yeah, he was.
What are you referring to? The young one? Yeah, we have a little practice one. Tell me,
He was tried under Section 960.
who was Masquerade?
He was one of the Batista exiles who was supposed to.
So he wasn't working for the United States government, you're saying?
No, but Alan Dulles could
No,
also
but he
be booked
wasn't
on the
working for the
same
United States
charges.
government.
Alan Dulles could be booked on the same charge.
It says he could be booked on the same charge if he was never booked. That's the total matter.
Well, this is a trial, Alex.
Look, it says he could.
Your Honor,
Violation of statute.
Wait, one lawyer at a time. One lawyer at a time. Sit down.
No, under Kennedy's authorization, which
He said he could be. Masquerade wasn't working. Wasn't a member of the United States government. And these two other guys says he could be. However, that's an opinion. If we can't put the guy who said this up on the trial, and we can't cross-ex on trial, and we can't cross-ex him, then no opinion can be accepted by the court.
Look at the legal statute.
I'm gonna get the legal statute, but they're on trial here. If they were not booked, you can't say maybe they could have been booked.
Now, entered it, it's a statute, right? It's already, definitely regular.
Okay, but I asked that this part be stricken. This is the part about Alan Dulles could also be Bissell and Alan Dulles because that has absolutely no relevance because that's just an opinion.
Okay, wait.
All
So
right,
just
that was
taking the letter of the law, and at the time that this man was tried, at the time
This is a whole other trial. This is a trial for Dulles and Bissell, which wasn't even held.
No, I established that he was under Kennedy authorization invasion.
Anyways, what are you trying to prove? And that the CIA was
No, that Kennedy authorized illegal actions.
How do you authorize illegal actions?
He authorized the CIA's actions, correct? Yes.
Wait a second, I'm reading this statute to see whether.
That's just that
What a waste of.
Why don't we just have a case here?
You want to try to dig us because you lost case and you're allowed to reject.
obviously. You guys
I'm
have
gonna get one question.
One of the reasons I asked
Submit under protest.
Did you, Dulles, did you realize that your actions would be held in question with international law as well?
CIA is not a State Department. They have no responsibility.
Yeah, but did you realize that they would be held in question since you represent the United States?
No further questions.
Point up for this. Next witness.
You're a Ex-President of Cuba, you're a TA. Manuel.
Very good. Come on.
What's the witness's name?
You're a TA. Manuel, you're a TA.
Before Batista.
President. No, after Batista.
I put up my cash.
Why did it say Carl Baby on this card?
Supposed to be Carl Baby. Carl Baby is Carl Baby.
Carl Baby had to be changed because once Cordell Hull was stricken, Jeannie's time was there, we had to get another witness. Or she would get a 0. You're a TA.
Yes, she won.
What is Scott?
What is Scott?
URRUTIA.
President of what?
Cuba.
For how long?
Well, we'll assume
Oh,
we'll
I'm
see.
sorry.
Having fun, Albert?
Okay, go ahead.
Any questions?
For the record, state your name, occupation.
I'm Dr. Manuel Urrutia.
Speak up, please.
Sorry. Dr. Manuel Urrutia. I was judge and provisional president of the Republic of Cuba from 1957 to 1959.
Could you please state your relationship with Castro?
I was part of the Cuban Cuban Revolution, Castro chose me to be provisional president. I accepted and later resigned when I realized that Castro was against democracy.
What kind of regime did Castro have?
The regime in today's Cuba is an absolute totalitarian monopoly, resembling a closed corporation. Communism has evolved to the phase at which it turns into a reactionary ideology serving only to justify rule by a new class through absolute totalitarian monopoly.
I'd like to make an objection based on the grounds of, when is she quoting, what date is that quote from?
This is from 1961.
Would you like the page number too?
No, I'd like to know the date of the...
Which is the whole book in evidence.
1961.
What date? What exact date? Because
It
it was
was
before...
written while I was in Venezuela in the summer of 1961.
Summer of, so after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Excuse me, after the day.
So what?
So it's absolutely no relevance.
She's the president before
Big
that.
deal when it was published.
This is when I written. This is like memoir kind of.
Exactly, so it has evolved into, that was my...
What? As what?
That's all. I just wanted to say, okay.
Cuba has established in Cuba a totalitarian regime with a directed economy. In the Third Reich, it was said, the Führer orders, let us obey. Von Hippel describes this as a formula for complete incapacitation and legality without consent. It grants a blank check to the rulers authorizing all kinds of persecutions and injustices. This is the case in Cuba as well.
Thank you. And has Castro ever lied about you?
Yes, when he phased me out of the Cuban government after I publicly announced my anti-communism. Castro stated that he proposed me for the presidency of the Republic without even knowing me. He lied. Everything else Castro said was indirect and vague. He implied that I complicated government problems, but did not specify problems I complicated. How could I complicate the government's problems if he had the powers necessary to resolve them? And I had only one, that of sanctioning or vetoing laws. And he also contradicted himself in saying, if we felt proud of anything, it was of these 6 months of revolutionary government without problems, problems being a thing of the past.
What propaganda did Castro use in his efforts to gain power?
Can you just give me the page number so I don't have to take notes on this?
Page number.
Is this an objection?
Yes, objection. Can I have the page number?
Brown's objection.
Can I still do this?
Feel free.
Can I still Castro alleged that he had not persecuted Catholics for being Catholics, Protestants for being Protestant, Masons for being Masons, not even Diario de la Marina for being a right-wing newspaper. This is true enough, but he persecuted them for being anti-communist, and he persecuted Fresno Libre, Avon, and other organs of the press that he seized from their owners for that very reason. Today in Cuba, only the communist and Castroist officials express their thoughts, which then become propaganda injected by force into the minds of Cubans. Burning class hatred, racial hatred, hatred of the domestic servant for her mistress, between rich and poor, Cubans for North Americans and the governments of Latin America, and that Castro called oligarchies, hatred for religion, for the shopkeeper as an exploiter, etc., etc.
Objection, this is all opinion.
Actually, it doesn't matter because she's an expert on Cuban affairs. She was, after all, she's provisional provisional president. She was a judge. She lived there all her life. She was born there. You're saying that she can't have an opinion on this? We're calling her to give expert testimony on the nature of Castro's government.
I like to contest the objectivity of the witness. I mean, as an expert.
Is this an objection or?
Yeah, objection. Really not. Seriously biased.
Objection on objectivity.
Seriously biased. I want.
Seriously, why
Outside.
Objection on objectivity.
She's thrown out.
It's hardly outside.
The judges have to rule on the objection.
She's one of the foremost experts we could possibly get on
But lacking objectivity.
Let him finish, right? What's the deal?
Let him back in
The judge will make a decision.
She was lacking objectivity.
That means we couldn't call Fidel Castro because he's obviously a subjective witness. They couldn't have called Fidel Castro. Also, they couldn't have called Jack Cameron because he's subjective.
Listen, that's the same with everyone else. That's over.
They didn't object to it.
As an example of the present undertaking of the Cuban government, how does labor operate under Castro's regime?
In a communist regime, labor leaders have to be subservient. There's no room There's no room for honorable leaders, since the unions no longer defend the workers but have become ordered at the service of a new class, the rulers, the leaders of the Communist Party, together with the bureaucracy of the party and the government. As such, their sole preoccupation is ensuring that the workers labor more while earning less.
What has Castro's communism brought to Cuba?
It's brought generalized and worsened misery throughout the country, destruction of the economy, loss of better world markets, which are unquestionably those of the free world, rancor and unleashing of
We just dealt with that.
rancor and the unleashing of hatreds and low passions in every stratum of the population, an end to cooperation with the democratic world, and shameful submission to ferocious Soviet super-imperialism, loss of every liberty, the most ominous future that has ever faced the fatherland in its entire existence, and in consequence of all this, the greatest exodus of people from Cuba in our country's history. The people escape by any means they can find: diplomatic asylum, launches, small sailboats, or they seek refuge in the mountains, just as Germans leave the Soviet Union.
Okay. Now let's deal with Cubans liking Castro. Obviously, since there wasn't a mass uprising, he can't be totally hated, can he?
Yes, the regime of Castro is falsely called popular.
Are these Cubans in the? Are these Cubans?
Yeah, she's a Cuban.
In the courtroom?
Yes, I'm Cuban.
No, as one. I mean, are you speaking to the whole
I'm
population?
speaking for the entire population.
She lives in Venezuela.
I
Yeah,
represent.
is it happened in Venezuela?
What do you mean out of Venezuela?
She's been there. Once again, it's her opinion. It's what she's dealt with. She's been up to people after she was deposed. She hung around Cuba. She got the vibes of the country. Obviously, she's an expert witness, and as an expert witness, she should be allowed to testify.
Biased. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's biased. Well, Fidel Castro was too biased.
well, we held them back. I'm just starting propaganda. I understand.
It's not propaganda.
Make a decision.
Well, I just overruled this. Mr. Payton. Mr. Payton. Coach Spence. Coach Spence. Coach Spence. Yeah, Spence. Explain.
Who can read lips?
Sorry, buddy.
That's it.
I was gonna.
I would request a 15-second recess.
It was not foreign enemies and reactionaries who threatened Castro, but nearly the entire Cuban people.
What was the question?
I didn't get it
It
right.
was on
I didn't get it.
about how popular Castro.
Just repeat the question. Right.
It's before that.
Okay.
How popular was Castro?
I request a 15-second recess.
Come on now.
It won't even be that much. There's been some question as to Castro's Soviet ties and whether he was a communist or not. Could you, how do you know? How do you know, as you alleged, he was a communist?
He is a communist. He openly took the road to communism and enslaved Cuba. As an example, I can cite all the journalists who weren't already dismissed or forced to emigrate had to accommodate themselves to writing whatever they were told to write, forever praising government and its communist puppet.
Okay. So you say Cuba is a Soviet puppet?
Yes, in Russia and Cuba, dictatorial power is held by the same hand. It's the economic power they share.
Did Castro go voluntarily under Soviet influence, or was he kind of pressured into it?
It was voluntarily. He severed his relations with America in order to have better ties with Soviet imperialism.
Anything further on? Could you elaborate on the Soviet control over Cuba?
Yeah. Yeah.
Specific question.
I can hand that in back.
Okay. We'll go that route.
The rest.
I think that's basically we submit our to the prosecution. And
I'd like to reserve the right to cross that short if you did.
if you want to photocopy this whole book, you can.
No, we're not objecting to anything. Now we're back to call the next witness.
Everything she said was backed up.
Now do you have the page numbers? Since you're not copying them.
Just hand
I can write them down, yeah. They're not the ones more.
You get back after a period.
Okay, next witness.
Are you not going to cross-check?
You have to have another date for process.
Yeah, and you can go back before Kennedy goes up and keep her up there.
Plenty of time.
We'll call, yeah.
Yeah.
Call on you if we run it.
That's it.
Alright.
Okay. We call Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr. to the stand.
Please state your name and occupation for the record.
I am Arthur Schlesinger, and I'm a historian.
And
Or stated
for
Jr.
the court, could you tell us of your credentials as a historian and foreign affairs expert?
Well, I won a Pulitzer Prize for my work on the Age of Jackson, and I served as a professor of history at Harvard University, as well as serving in several positions in the United States government.
All right. Well, was there a relation between you and John F. Kennedy?
Yes, there was.
And what was that?
I was a presidential associate. In other words, I was an advisor to Mr. Kennedy.
All right. Now, when did John Kennedy first learn the plan for an attack of Cuba by Cuban exiles?
I believe it was sometime in November 1960, about 2 months before he took office.
And what was his response to such a plan?
Well, I recall he had a briefing with Mr. Allen Dulles, and in that briefing, he told Mr. Dulles to continue the training of the troops who were stationed in Guatemala, and that we could keep some kind of invasion as one of our options for the situation in Cuba.
All right. Was this before his presidency?
Yes, it was.
All right. And so, technically speaking, did Kennedy have command over Allen Dulles at this time?
No, he didn't.
All right. And yet, how did Allen Dulles take Kennedy's statement?
Well, Mr. Dulles took it as almost an order from the top that he could expand on his invasion plans.
All right. Then how much had this plan proceeded before Mr. Kennedy had taken office?
As I recall, it had escalated to plans of a 600 to 700 Cuban person invasion of Cuba, and that included an airstrike on Cuba. And they also had plans to take over a region in Cuba and thus form some sort of rebellion or anti-Cuban feeling.
And was all this before Kennedy was even in office?
Yes, it was.
Then who had formulated this plan?
I believe it was formulated by the CIA.
All right. Once he was in office, what influenced Kennedy to allow the progression of this plan?
Well, I do recall that Kennedy received information from the CIA about Cuba receiving Soviet planes.
All right. And what was your opinion of the plan?
Personally, I was opposed to it.
All right. And in your opinion, was Mr. Kennedy in favor of the plan?
No, he was not.
Then why did he proceed with the plan? Your Honor, I got this. He was a close personal advisor of Mr. Kennedy, and he was there throughout the whole thing. Opinion, yes, expert witness for qualified history, and he's a close advisor. He's a close advisor of the president.
Sustain. Go to a different line of questioning. That's an opinion. Go still back to the expert witness. You're asking directly.
All right.
That states his opinion.
Well, then let's get Kennedy out. All right. Oh, 15 seconds.
No, forget it. Just go.
All right. Why did Kennedy proceed with the plan at this time?
Well, basically, Kennedy couldn't say no.
And why not? Wait a second. No. What are you? No. This is wrong. He was there at the entire meeting. His advisors were talking to Kennedy. Now we can establish facts of why he couldn't say no.
Yes, but this is Arthur Schlesinger's opinion. that
He
Kennedy
was
would
right
say no.
there, and all the people talking to
All
him.
I want to state his question. Now, before he stated his opinion.
Well,
restrictions. Objection! Not only was he a close personal advisor, he was also his friend. He had been his friend for several years. I mean, he can make these judgments. He said on record in his Pulitzer Prize winning book about the Kennedy era that he knew the opinion of the president. Yeah, we do. It's called 1,000 Days.
Is that an objection, by the way?
No,
No, we're arguing.
He's defending the objection.
1,000 Days. Look in the forward. It says it won a Pulitzer Prize.
Just because it's
No, I mean, that's your that's issue.
I don't care about
I mean, you said, where's the Pulitzer Prize?
Do you have evidence?
Of what his opinion is? Yeah.
Yes, I do, and I'll show you where it is.
One lawyer at a time, please.
Page 256. It has the whole meaning of how how he was there when the president, how the president could not say no. I'm going to establish why he could say no either.
What's the matter? He just could not say no when he
Our first one starts with the professor writing it, so he's in the room. And he goes, more than once I left the meeting, so you have to preparation. The whole thing says no. You really can't read it. Read the whole paragraph.
Can you stop this?
No, keep it going.
Mike,
This is an absurd objection. I mean, read it. It says this whole thing says
Mike, make a rule that objection.
He wrote the book.
Come on, Jeff.
It does not say anywhere that there's nowhere it says Kenny could not say no. It even says, I reserve the right to stop this thing up to 24 hours before the landing.
However, if you read further into the book, which you obviously haven't done, it indicates that same answer.
Where is it? I asked him to show it to me, and he showed me something. He showed right there where I could stop the time.
I can't argue with you.
Could Kennedy say no? He was
Oh, I know. What is
It
that?
says right here, I reserve the right. Wait, Judge, it says right here. I reserve the right to stop this thing up to 24 hours before the landing. It's right there. He's actually supporting us.
First of all, that's on the grounds that was a key mistake. He didn't know it was a secret CIA plan, which Bissell even admitted it to.
Mike,
My friend.
where's the point where it says he could not say no? It says right there, he reserved the right.
What's this business?
Mike,
I got down a page.
check page 239, Mike.
Is that just a random number?
Ridiculous.
He's at something.
You said you can't put up.
He was there. Where's not
If you said Cordell Holt could have it.
Yeah, but Cordell Holt was dead.
Ron.
I don't consider Arthur Schlesinger dead. So what? Well, so dead. So what? You can't have an opinion of something that never happened before you die. Your brain's not functional anymore. Any fool can figure that out.
We said that when he's alive, no matter what.
Arthur Schlesinger was alive. Cordell Holt was dead.
Yes.
Quiet.